A little bit of background about me, why you should even consider anything I have to say. So I've been in real estate for almost about 18 years. I started just like you, Heidi, doing mostly buyers, sellers. And then from there, I started buying some of my own investment properties. I then started a property management company as well. So we manage a ton of investors' portfolios, as I've also increased my portfolio from long-term hold. I've done some buy and flips. I've done hard money lending for other people. And I've also got a few short-term rentals out of the state and also one out of the country. So I've got a vast knowledge in a lot of different areas that I feel like I could be a resource center for some people. So what I've usually done in our meetup groups is, since this is the first one, and one of the things that I wanted to kind of go over is what it looked like to invest, especially in a market like this, things to look for. What I'm seeing a lot of people who are trying to get started in real estate investing initially, feeling like they don't know where to start, or not having enough education, or feeling like they're gonna fail at what they're doing. So with enough knowledge, you can only, the way that I learn is through action, right? Someone can tell me how to do something 10 times, but until I actually do it myself, it's a lot harder. So what I've been doing is trying to nurture what people are doing, the education that they're getting, but also kind of be like the mama bird and push them out of the nest, because once they do, they'll learn through their own experiences as well. Everybody else, what have we already started investing? I know Heidi said she's got one property. Where are you guys at with your investing experience, or are we just getting started? That'll kind of help me with the stuff that I want to talk about today. If you guys want to throw it in the chat. I know Kofi's got some long-term buy and hold. Heidi, you've got one. Are you long-term?
Actually, it's an investment property just because it was my home, and then I kept it and I, rent it out now. So kind of an investment by default.
That's honestly, that's how I started. It's one of the best ways to do it. So let's get into that real fast and what that looks like. So for a lot of people, especially in a market like this where interest rates are crazy and there's not a ton of properties, one of the things that I did in order to get started, it was almost like Heidi. I got into real estate investing by default. So I bought my first house and lived in it for 2 years. And there was another property that came on the market that actually, it was a foreclosure. It was much larger than the house I was in. And so I knew that would make a good investment. So I was ready to move on from my house at that point. Instead of selling that house, what I did is I came up with enough money to put a down payment on the next house that I was moving to, since at that point I only needed to do a 2.5% FHA loan. If you're going to buy an investment property, right, you're going to need at least 20%. So my entry to barrier was a lot less. So I moved from my first home and bought my second home, and that was now going to be my primary residence. And then I kept the first one, and that was my first investment property. And I actually did that a few times before I bought my first investment property on purpose. So the house that I had bought that was a foreclosure, fixed it up. I lived in that for a few years. And then another property came on the market that I liked that wound up being another rehab property. I seem to like those a lot. That was not to date, but at that point, it was my largest rehab I had done. So we completely renovated that house. It was another foreclosure, but that property got me 14 acres, and it got me close to 5,000 square feet of home once it was fixed up. So then at that point, I had two properties, and both of which I was able to buy with regular owner financing at a regular owner type interest rate, as opposed to a higher interest for an investor loan. And that's a nice way, a more subtle way to start into the real estate investing arena if the down payment might not be the best for you. So if you're looking to maybe move in the next couple of years, what would that look like instead of selling your house, turning that into an investment property, and then just coming up with the down payment for the next property? It's a lot less than it would be to come up with a down payment for an investment. So that's, Heidi, that's funny that you did that. That's how I got started. And that's what gave me the itch to start real estate investing. And then, okay, so yeah, strategy Burr, love that. Buy, fix, renovate, refi, pull the money out, and keep going from there. So let me see if I can share my screen. So I've got this thing that I created, and it's called the 10 Steps to Becoming a Landlord Guide. And so one of the things that I like to do is try and give investors who are looking to get started in real estate enough stuff to kind of go off of and be able to work through and see what that looks like for them. So this workbook that I can send it and email it to whoever might want it. So just let me know in the chat if you, once we go over it or now, if you have interest in what this workbook is. But what this does is it just, goes over, so table of contents, for example, we've got the goal setting worksheet. It helps you define what your goals and objectives are as a landlord, for budgeting and financial assessment. The property criteria worksheet, your market research template, property viewing and checklist, comparative market analysis, financing options, offer negotiation worksheet, and due diligence checklist, purchase closing checklist. So this for me is really big when I'm working with other investors because it helps us set the stage for what it looks like for them. The first step that I suggest for everyone is goal setting. The reason I do it, and a lot of people say that sounds so cliche, and you're right, it really does. But the difference is, for example, I always like to compare this to what it looks like to go to the gym and lose weight, or whatever your goal is in the gym, to bulk up, to build muscle. You set that goal and you find out what that goal means to you, right? So it's not easy to lose the weight or build the muscle or go to the gym every day. And so finding what your goal is for it and your reasons for why, finding that purpose really helps you through the times where you might want to quit, or it's a struggle, or it's not working out. Figuring out what that looks like for you and your true why is going to help you through this process. For some people in the goal setting process, it's one of those things is also like, okay, here's my financial goal, but I also don't have a whole lot of time to do this. So would a fix and flip be the type of property that I should be investing in right now? Well, probably not, because fixing and flipping properties takes a lot of your time to oversee crews and to make sure everything's in order. As opposed to, if I don't have a lot of time and I want to make some money in real estate, maybe I buy and hold a property. That takes some time, but not as much as what an oversight of fixing a property would look like. So financing strategy, property management approach. Now, financing strategy. Okay, so do you have a property right now that's got equity in it? Could you refinance that and pull some cash out? Are you buying this property in an LLC? Does it need to have a commercial loan? So buying a property in an LLC means you can't get a regular conventional financing. You have to get commercial loan. So just understanding what your financial strategy will be is going to be important in setting all of these goals and how you want to approach this. Property management approach. That doesn't mean you need to hire a property manager, but it means you need to then understand what it looks like for you to be the landlord and property manager of the property. And so what that looks like for you. If you're going to self-manage it, are you going to put tools in place in order to make it easier for people to pay their rent? Or how are you going to schedule the showings? So just all of the things that go into what it looks like to manage a property. You just want to make sure that you're clear on what they look like and whose job and responsibilities that's going to be. And then once you get those things together, some action steps and what that looks like for you. The budget, I've got one that we can do. It's actually an online calculator. So this is just kind of for informational purposes. But when you're finding a property and what that looks like, you're going to look for, okay, all the information that comes with the property. So if it's already an investment and you're buying something that a tenant already lives in, what is the rent amount? Or if it's vacant right now or owned as a primary residence, what does that look like of what your mortgage payment's going to be or what potential rent could be? And then finding out what all the expenses are. Who's paying for what? I've seen some investors who haven't done their full due diligence And when they're buying a property, I had someone come to me and they bought a commercial property on the first floor, and then it was multifamily up above. And so the numbers made sense for them. But what they didn't do is the research and due diligence to find out, well, the owner was the one who was paying the utilities. And so when the utilities were being paid by the owner and that wasn't disclosed, what it changed the numbers and what he was making every month. So just understanding what that looks like and getting all of the stuff up front. And then your financial assessment. So once again, the down payment, the closing cost, what that looks like and how you're going to go about getting all of that stuff is very important. And working with a good lender and a good realtor to do all of these things is going to be easy for you to get all of these numbers. They'll be able to break it all down for you in a nice spreadsheet so that you have an understanding of what that looks like. And you'll know if the investment is a true benefit to you or if it's one that you need to pass by because it doesn't make sense. And then just understanding your numbers. I'm going to do another series on what it looks like once you own investment properties to really dive into what it looks like for your numbers and how to find that. So many investors that I've worked with in the past get upset when there's some repairs that need to be done on the property. So there's $300 that needs to be spent for, some bathroom repair or whatever it might be. But they're not looking at the big picture. And the big picture is the appreciation on the property, how much money in total that they've made, that the tenant has been the one paying their mortgage down, so all of the things, what they could sell the property for now, all the numbers that truly give you the full picture of your investment. So in our property management portfolio or in our software, we don't have all of this ROI and all of those things. We just have income and expenses. We have, the balance sheet. We've got all of the things that are just standard reports. But what I like to do is break it down even further to do the ROI, to know what your cash on cash return is and things like that. So it gives you a clear idea of truly how valuable buying real estate investments are. And then doing market research. So buying an investment property, it doesn't always have to be in your direct neighborhood. If you're going to manage it yourself, it might be wise to do that. So finding out what that looks like for you. Market research meetings. So I wound up buying some properties in the Raleigh, North Carolina area for Airbnb. That's a highly desired neighborhood and area for Airbnb, from the schools to the people visiting to big businesses coming in and needing locations for people to come for meetings and things like that. So just understanding what it is around you and what it is you're trying to do is very important to the type of property that you should be buying, the location, and the style of investment you're going to be doing, from short-term to long-term to buy and hold or fix and flip, all of those things.
How did you find those?
So I actually
did the research on your own?
So I've done some research on my own. I have several friends that actually live in that area and connected me with a great realtor that they had used. And that's, okay. As you know, Heidi, finding a good realtor who knows the area. So the one property that I had bought is just outside of downtown, which is perfect for Airbnb guests to be able to walk downtown Raleigh. Mm-hmm. And then the other property was, if I were to buy it on my own, I probably would not have bought it. But my realtor said in the next 5 years, this is an up and coming area. You can get in right now at a price. I think I might have paid $380 for it a few years ago. And already with this market, I think it's worth $650.
Oh, so, wow, that's great.
So having a realtor who understands what the market is now and what is going to happen in the next several years through development and other restructuring of the city. And so what really happened was, in that area, we have a huge complex getting built for like a sports arena. Mm-hmm. And it hadn't been started at that point, but now it's under construction. So all the prices in that general area are going up. So it's been huge, and it's been great for the actual nightly rental rate on my Airbnb. So understanding all of that. And so like I've got all of this on paper, but a lot of this can be done through calculators. This is kind of just a visual thing for you to go over what that looks like, and things that you should be thinking about through the purchase of an investment property. And the rental potential. So for me, before buying an investment property, not only do I want to look at what the local market is, what it's going to be, but I want to look at what my competition already is. I want to look at what other rental rates are doing, other properties that are like mine are bringing in for rent, whether it's long-term or short-term. If I'm flipping a property, I want to look at what the properties are selling for now that are going to be similar to what my finished product is going to be. So just understanding and timing all of those things is very important to what it looks like when you're purchasing. And we talked a little bit about target market as far as market research, the target market as far as ideal tenant profile. Now, I'm not going to get into what type of tenant in as far as anything to do with fair housing. I'm talking the type of tenant as in, are we going to be in a metro area? Are we going to be, those types of things? Are we looking for a single family home? Are we buying a multifamily? Those types of things where we're looking at is probably going to be a young family, or maybe if we're buying a single family, it could be an older family. I've had people in my single family properties who even were executives that were coming into the area who just didn't know the area at the time and so wanted to rent for a year. So all of those things make up the different types of tenant profiles that you're going to get depending on the types of property that you've decided to buy. And then same thing, all of this stuff, rental demand, rental market trends, all of this is the due diligence that you want to do for the area that you're selecting before you even buy. You want to make sure that the trends are leaning towards going up or at minimum staying where they are. I've seen areas for some of my other property management friends across the country who some of the areas, their rental rates were going very high during the COVID timeframe, but now they're starting to really fall off. So you just want to understand, is it going to be a cyclical thing, or is it going to, steady increase and stay where it is for the long run? And then let's see, same thing, market research with competitive analysis. We've kind of talked about that, rental rates, property features and amenities, vacancy rates. And so all of these things, once again, if you got an investor or a realtor who is helping you and they know the area, as well as also understanding what real estate investing looks like, because the needs of an investor are going to be different than a regular buyer and seller. When you're buying real estate as an investor, it is no longer an emotional. It is very much facts and data driven. So that was probably the hardest thing for me when I moved from my house that was my primary and moved into the other one. It took me a little while to take the emotion out of my first house. So if that's something that you can't do, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Walking back into the property where, I raised my infant son until he was 2 years old. And seeing, it wasn't actually damage to the property. It was just tenant wear and tear that was more than what I would have done. And I didn't like it. So some of those things to kind of just keep in mind in the back of your head, if you want to do that style of investing, that you really just need to take the emotion out of what that looks like. Heidi, how did that work for you when you went back into your property?
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I just, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll just sell this and start off from scratch because, I just didn't like that.
Yeah, it was hard for me to get over. And so the benefit for me was I own, my property management company. And so I knew that I was being way too emotional about the property every time I would go in and look at it. So I said, that's it. You guys are taking over from here. I cannot go back in this property. And so they now handle that property for me so that I don't have to. But it helps. It's a great rental for me. It was a great starter home also for me, but it takes that emotional aspect out. So
yeah. And it so well. So you find yourself like over talking and oversell,
Right. And there's no need for
rent it.
Yeah, there's no need for it. So understanding all of that and understanding where your emotions might play into it is very important as well. Let's see. So risk assessment, all of this stuff, market research. This was actually, oh, and then when we get into the actual property viewing, there's a lot of different things that are important for a tenant. There might not be important in a fix and flip. There's things that are important in a fix and flip that will probably wind up being someone's primary home versus if it was just a tenant occupied property. So understanding the amenities that a tenant's going to want over the amenities of what an investor is looking for with a landlord tenant relationship is also very crucial. So whereas, a fix and flip where it's going to be someone's primary, it's going to be a nice single family home. The features that you're going to do are going to be a little bit more on the higher end versus the way that I do my flips for my rental properties. I still do them in a way that I would feel comfortable either living in or putting my children in. However, they're not going to be top of the line features that I would in a primary home. And then comparable market analysis. So when you're doing this with a rental property, you should be working with a realtor who can get this information for you. So understanding, once again, what the property mortgage is going to be versus what your rent's going to be. All of those things are very important. And so understanding how to find all of that. There's even software for people who are not going to use a property manager to be able to help you. You can look through, realtor.com and things like that to see what other properties that are similar to yours is renting for. And so understanding, let's talk quickly about what emotion could be drawn to this. So just like you get that emotion attached to, the house that you're going to be buying to live in, sometimes you get that, superior complex with your property because it is yours. So creating an open mind to what your house truly is versus other properties, so that your comparative market analysis is similar to what they should be. We've had a lot of investors who have put in certain features or spent a lot of money, and the money spent might just be repairs that need to be done, say to the roof or to the HVAC system. And so, yes, they did put a lot of money out, but those things are not anything that's going to increase the rental value. So it's just understanding what it looks like and what features that you're doing to the property to increase. You might increase the value of the property on some of them, but you're not going to increase the rental rate on all of those things. The mortgage calculator, like I said, this is in here more for a visual. This can easily be done. There's software calculators online. When you're ready to buy and contact somebody in the mortgage world, they can easily create all of this stuff for you in a very clear and concise way for you to be able to understand and see very clearly what it will look like for you. So the offer and negotiation. This is the part where people usually get tied up. And it's because they feel like once they make an offer on the property, they are locked into it. Now, and I'm saying this mostly for rookie real estate investors because they've looked at properties, they've done all the stuff leading up to this point. And so they're familiar with what it looks like to kind of do a little bit of due diligence. But once they get to this offer and thinking they're going to make this offer on a property, they get cold feet and they don't want to move forward because they're still scared of that failure. What I'll say is, especially in the real estate investing world, making the offer is just the first step. That's not locking you into the property because you still have the different inspections and things like that you have to go through. I put in different contingencies, including things like making sure, so if it's currently already a rental, making sure I see the rental leases, making sure I understand if the property needs to be lead certified, if those things are in there, if the property needs to have a rental license, make sure that's in there. So I do a lot of due diligence up front, and I make them all part of my contingencies because what they say on online, and is no fault of their own, sometimes people truly think that those numbers are what they are. But until you actually see them on paper that are signed and agreed to by both landlord and tenant, they might be different than what was originally presented to you. So understanding what that looks like is very important, and going through those steps. So yes, making an offer is locking you into a contract, but you still have contingencies in place, or you should have contingencies in place for the review of all of those documents, for the inspection of the property to make sure it is exactly the way you want it to be. Or if it's a fixer-upper, so it's exactly the things that you know already need to be fixed and not some other big issue. So just understanding what that looks like. And the negotiation part. So you've got the negotiation at the beginning when you're negotiating what the purchase price is going to be and all of those things. But then you can have another negotiation when it comes to what it looks like after all of these inspections and your due diligence is done. If you find something where the numbers don't line up, or there's a major repair that wasn't disclosed, or what that looks like, you can go back and see if you can negotiate with the seller to either make modifications on the price, to offer a credit, or make the repairs that might need to be made. Sometimes I've even, when leases aren't what they were supposed to be, or they don't have leases in writing at all, I will, as part of my negotiation, ask them to get the lease signed prior to me buying with that higher rate, or get something in writing from them. So whatever it looks like and whatever makes you feel comfortable moving forward is how you should negotiate with the seller. And same thing. So we just talked about your due diligence and the review of legal documents, the property title and ownership, which is what the title company will be doing. Same thing with liens and property tax assessments. The financial performance of the property, this is what you're going to be getting during those contingency periods, that property inspection. And through that, you're going to see if there's any structural issues or damages or necessary repairs. Usually, if you've walked through the property, you know of at least the cosmetic things that need to be done. Once that happens, you'll be able to go through the structural potential damages to the property with the home inspector. And they'll be doing this. They'll be assessing the condition of the property, the plumbing, electrical, all of those things. And then once all of that happens, you want to go through and get insurance quotes for the property, making sure that they understand that this is going to be an investment, a non-owner occupied property. And, like I already said before, the renewing or reviewing of the leases, the payment history, what type of tenant that is, just so you can get an understanding of what that looks like. And then we get to the purchase and closing phase. We've already negotiated our contract. We've already gone and done our home inspection and our due diligence on the other contingencies that we've done. The title company has done, or the attorney, depending on what state you're in, has already done their due diligence and making sure that the property is free and clear of any title liens or anything like that. You've gotten your homeowner's insurance. There's a final walkthrough. And your mortgage lender is sending over the loan docs to either the title company or the attorney for closing. And closing day happens, and you guys are now investors. And that's a pretty cool thing. You go through all of that stuff, and it might seem like a lot, but in reality, usually it's 30 to 45 days of once you get all that solved. So it goes by quick. And then from there, it's a matter of understanding what it looks like to be a landlord. And that is a conversation that we can talk about at another point on the different steps that it looks like to be a successful landlord. Because for me, understanding how to be a real estate investor is different than how to be a successful landlord. They're two different, very, very different things. That's why property management is usually on the table. Because if you're really good at finding property and being an investor, taking the time to also understand the tenant landlord laws might not be for you. It might be. You might like that, and you might like doing all those things. But just understanding what that looks like. My goal for this is I don't want to be the one speaking every single week. I plan on bringing in people who have awesome things to say in different sections of real estate investing. So if there's other things that are important to you to either understand or learn, I have brought them in prior when I was hosting these groups pre-COVID. So I would be more than happy to bring these people in again. So as we get this going, just look for speakers that interest you, and I will be hosting this every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Some of them will, if there's not a ton of participation, we can probably get them done in half hour to 45 minutes. If we get some participation, we can take it to 4 and do a little networking via Zoom as well. So completely up to you guys. Doesn't matter to me either way. I just want to be able to provide the information for you guys to use and hopefully start investing or invest more. So with that being said, if there's nothing else, then that's all I have for you guys today. And I will follow up with you, Kofi. And who said, oh yeah, Kofi wanted the guide. So if anybody else wants the guide, feel free to shoot me a message and I'll get it over to you as well. But I hope you guys have a great day, and I will hopefully see you next week.